Welcome to a quick escape from boredom. Today, I'm not just bringing you ordinary cinema. I've got 3 legendary movies packed with excitement and hype. These stories will keep you on the edge of your seat with non-stop, breathtaking action. If you're ready for the thrill, smash that like button. And our first movie today is Sergeant Stubby, an American hero. Let's get this movie started. At the beginning of the story, we see a stray dog who has been starving for several days. Because of this, he wanders around searching for food. Eventually, he reaches a chicken shop and somehow manages to steal a bone from there. But while running away, he bumps into a man, causing the bone to fall onto the ground and disappear somewhere in the noise and chaos of the crowd. The dog becomes extremely sad. The disappointment is clearly visible in his eyes. Just then, a group of army soldiers marches past the area. Among them is a soldier named Robert. When Robert notices the dog, he gives him a biscuit. The dog's eyes immediately light up with happiness, and he begins following Robert wherever he goes. Now we are told that during World War II, when French and British soldiers were fighting against the German army together, America also joined the war. The United States wanted to defeat Germany at any cost. Because of this, they began giving military training to the young citizens of the country so they could be sent into battle if needed. Following Robert, the dog eventually reaches the training grounds. Robert enters the camp with the other soldiers, and the dog sneaks inside through a broken wall. Following the smell of food, he makes his way into the kitchen. However, before he can eat anything, the chef notices him and angrily chases him out. The dog runs away and soon bumps into Robert again. Seeing Robert makes him happy once more. Robert tries to explain that he does not have any more biscuits left, but the dog cannot understand him. Now he simply wants to stay with Robert. During training, a senior officer notices the dog and immediately likes him. He tells Robert to make sure the dog gets something to eat after training ends. Later, Robert takes the dog with him to the canteen and feeds him. Robert's friends warn him that if the colonel sees the dog there, he will become furious and throw him out of the camp. The next day, while Robert trains with the other soldiers, the dog runs beside him, plays with him, and has fun the entire time. During training, the senior officers notice that unlike ordinary stray dogs, this dog is not frightened by the sound of gunfire. In fact, he quickly understands human commands as well. This convinces them that the dog is not ordinary and could be useful to the military. That night, while playing with the dog, Robert gives him the name Stubby. He also begins training him to understand human commands and language. The next day, when the colonel arrives at the military camp to meet the officers, Stubby is there as well. Stubby notices that all the officers are saluting the colonel, so he imitates them and salutes the colonel too. The colonel is very impressed by this and gives Stubby permission to stay in the camp. While living at the camp, Stubby becomes everyone's favorite. He begins understanding commands, and the officers grow extremely fond of him. Soon, the day finally arrives when the officers must leave for the battlefield. Their unit is named the Yankee Division. Before sending them off to war, the colonel wishes all the officers good luck and orders Stubby to remain at the camp to help train the next group of soldiers. Hearing this makes Robert very sad. He does not want to be separated from Stubby, but he has no other choice. Before leaving, Robert gives Stubby a badge. Stubby becomes very happy after receiving it. Robert asks the chef to take care of Stubby and then heads toward the train with the other soldiers. Somehow, Stubby frees himself from the rope restraining him and follows Robert's scent all the way to the train, carrying Robert and the other soldiers. Stubby secretly boards the train and eventually reaches the ship. When he sees Robert boarding the ship, he hides inside a box that is being loaded onto the vessel as cargo. Night falls, and everyone on the ship goes to sleep. That is when Stubby climbs out of the box. He begins searching for Robert throughout the ship, and eventually, he finally finds him. Robert is completely shocked when he sees Stubby on the ship. Robert's friend Olson tells him that if the general finds out about Stubby, they could all end up in serious trouble. Because of this, they try to keep Stubby hidden. However, Stubby accidentally bumps into the general, but when Robert and the other soldiers salute the general, Stubby imitates them and salutes as well. Then, he picks up the general's fallen cane with his mouth and hands it back to him. The general is absolutely amazed by all of this. He becomes convinced that Stubby will definitely be useful on the battlefield. Because of this, he orders the captain to officially make Stubby a member of Robert's unit. After that, Stubby receives his own nameplate, just like the other soldiers. And this is how Stubby transforms from a stray dog into a military dog. Now, Stubby arrives in France with Robert and his unit. There, the British and French armies are fighting together against the German soldiers, but the German forces are overpowering them. During one of the German attacks, several American and British soldiers become trapped under debris. Stubby bravely searches for them and helps pull them out of the rubble, saving many lives. When Robert meets his French soldier friend Gaston, Gaston is also very happy to see him. Soon, the two become close friends. Afterward, Gaston takes Robert and his companions toward the camp. Along the way, they pass through a destroyed city that has been completely devastated by the German army. At the camp, everyone rests for the night. The next morning, Robert heads out on patrol with Gaston and Stubby. While hiding behind a large rock and observing the German soldiers through binoculars, they discover that the Germans are planning to launch a poisonous gas attack on the city. The moment they realize this, Robert, Gaston, and Stubby immediately begin running back toward their camp so they can warn their army in time. While running, Stubby notices that a German soldier is about to shoot Robert, but before the soldier can fire, Stubby forcefully pushes Robert to the ground, causing the enemy to miss his shot. In this way, Stubby saves Robert's life. Afterward, Robert and Gaston hide behind the trunk of a tree. There, Robert realizes how dangerous the situation has become. German soldiers are aiming at them from every direction. Because of this, Robert shows Stubby a gas mask and signals for him to go warn everyone about the poisonous gas attack. Stubby immediately understands Robert's signal and runs as fast as he can back to the camp. Once there, Stubby grabs a gas mask in his mouth. The soldiers instantly understand what he is trying to say, and they quickly put on their masks. Soon, the German army begins firing rockets filled with poisonous gas into the sky. Within moments, green gas starts spreading everywhere. Near the war zone, a village is also about to be affected by the deadly gas. But before the gas can reach the village, Stubby arrives there first. He begins barking loudly and continuously. The villagers become alarmed by Stubby's behavior. At the same moment, they notice that the sky has suddenly turned green and poisonous gas is spreading everywhere. Everyone immediately puts on masks. Stubby is still outside when Robert and Gaston suddenly arrive on horseback. They quickly take Stubby into one of the houses. Inside, they place a cloth over his mouth to protect him from the gas. After the poisonous gas finally clears, everyone comes outside. The villagers are overjoyed to see Stubby because he is the reason they survive. From that moment on, the villagers begin seeing him as their hero. After returning to the camp, the captain announces that one of the soldiers has been missing ever since the German shelling began. Despite many attempts, nobody has been able to locate him. Stubby understands the captain's words as well. Using his powerful sense of smell, he avoids German artillery fire and bullets while searching for the missing soldier, and eventually, he successfully finds the wounded man. Now, using smoke grenades, the soldiers manage to rescue the wounded man, and because of Stubby's bravery, the soldier's life is saved. After this, Robert's unit receives orders to relocate to another battlefield. Before leaving, a woman from the village gifts Stubby a jacket she made with her own hands, and Gaston gives him a proper gas mask so that if another poisonous gas attack happens, Stubby will have protection. After saying goodbye to everyone, they continue on their journey. In the next scene, the colonel informs all the soldiers that they will now have to engage the German army in direct face-to-face combat. Once they arrive, a dangerous battle breaks out between them and the German forces. During this war, Stubby once again plays an important role and helps save many lives. At one point, Stubby cleverly tricks several German soldiers into chasing him and leads them straight toward the U.S. Army camp, where the American soldiers capture them as prisoners. However, during the battle, when Stubby tries to save a soldier from a grenade explosion, he ends up getting badly injured himself. The moment Robert sees Stubby wounded, he immediately carries him back to camp, where the doctor refers Stubby to a hospital for treatment. Being separated from Stubby leaves Robert heartbroken. He can no longer focus on the war. Around the same time, Gaston also receives orders to return to his own camp. Robert sadly says goodbye to him because after Stubby left, Gaston had become the only companion with whom he could still spend happy moments. But now, even Gaston is leaving. Alone and depressed, Robert writes a letter to his sister. Stubby's absence affects him so deeply that he eventually falls ill. When the doctors examine Robert, they realize that he may not survive much longer and could die very soon. Meanwhile, in the city, Stubby's injured leg is still not completely healed. Even so, he leaves the hospital in search of Robert. During the journey, Stubby experiences terrible pain in his legs, but he refuses to give up. He continues walking endlessly in search of his owner. At one point, exhausted and overwhelmed by pain, Stubby collapses onto the ground, but he rises again. The only thing in his eyes is the determination to find Robert. Finally, after overcoming countless hardships, Stubby succeeds in reaching Robert. Robert becomes overjoyed when he sees Stubby again. Stubby's presence alone helps Robert recover from his fever, and within a few days, he returns to normal. During a break from duty, Robert travels to Paris with Stubby and his friends. There, he spends a wonderful time with Stubby. The two of them enjoy themselves together, and people everywhere show respect to Stubby because by now his bravery and loyalty have made him famous throughout the world. During this time, Stubby also helps the military capture a German spy. Impressed by this achievement, the general promotes Stubby to a higher officer rank. Robert is promoted as well. Now, Stubby has effectively become senior to many of the army officers in the camp. Around this time, Gaston returns once again. He is extremely happy about the promotions of Robert and Stubby and congratulates them wholeheartedly. Afterward, a group photograph is taken featuring Robert, Stubby, and the entire unit. In the next scene, the American and French armies join forces against the German military and successfully force them to retreat. When Gaston and Robert inspect the advanced German bunkers, they are completely shocked because the German defenses are incredibly strong and secure. There, a soldier informs them that the war is about to end because the government is expected to announce a ceasefire the following morning. The commander confirms this and says that at exactly 11 a.m. the next day, the official ceasefire announcement will be made and the war will finally come to an end. Hearing this news makes Robert and all the soldiers extremely happy because now they will finally be able to return home. But the very next day, the German soldiers suddenly launch another attack and a deadly battle once again erupts between the two armies. During the fight, when Robert sees Gaston advancing alone toward the front lines, he immediately follows him with Stubby close behind. After moving ahead, Robert notices that two German soldiers have surrounded Gaston from all sides. Seeing his friend in danger, Robert rushes forward with Stubby to help him. But just then, the ceasefire is officially announced. The German soldiers drop their weapons and surrender. Robert looks at his watch and sees that it is exactly 11 a.m. The war is finally over, and now Robert can return home with Stubby. Stubby is also incredibly excited about going home. The joy of returning is clearly visible in his eyes. However, before leaving, Robert and Stubby first begin searching for their wounded companions. During this search, Robert finds the cap of his best friend, which means he was killed in the war. Seeing this leaves Robert heartbroken. Together with Gaston, he says a final goodbye to his closest friend. Afterward, Robert part ways with Gaston, and Stubby leaves for his hometown alongside the remaining officers from his camp. At the harbor, huge crowds gather to welcome Stubby home. By now, Stubby has become a national hero across the entire country. He is welcomed there with the honor and respect given to a senior military officer. A photographer captures a historic photograph of Stubby, a picture that remains famous around the world even today, because this story is based on real events. And with that, our movie ends. And our second movie is Bambi. Let's dive right into it. The movie starts in this forest at night, and everyone is sound asleep. As soon as the morning sun comes up, news reaches the entire forest, and they all start running. We find this rabbit, Thumper, trying to wake up the owl, telling him to wake up because the new prince has been born. He tells him, wake up, let's go see him." And they all run until they see the prince. Everyone is incredibly happy, congratulating the prince's mother and welcoming the new prince. Right then, the prince tries to stand on his feet, but this nosy rabbit says that the prince doesn't know how to stand and is going to fall. His mother scolds him and asks him what his father told him. He tells her that he's just telling the truth, and indeed, the prince falls and everyone laughs. But the owl tells them that the prince looks like he wants to sleep and they should leave him for a bit, making them leave one by one. Thumper asks her what she'll name him, and she tells him she'll name him Bambi. He tells her it's a very beautiful name, Then we see his father watching them from a distance. After that, we see Bambi walking with his mother in the forest, still not knowing how to walk well and feeling surprised by everything around him. Every time he meets someone, he's very happy with. While walking, he trips over this tree branch, and everyone runs to him. Thumper asks if he got hurt, and his mother tells him, no, he's fine. Of course, Thumper says that the poor thing still doesn't know how to walk. His mother scolds him and asks what his father told him today. He tells her, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. After that, they all encourage Bambi to try to stand up again. And indeed, Bambi succeeds and stands up once more. He starts walking with the little rabbits, but on the way, he finds a high bump. With great agility, he manages to get down from. Thumper stands at a tree trunk and tells him that he thumps, and that's why they call him Thumper. They all jump from the tree trunk, and Bambi does the same and is very happy. After that, Bambi finds a tree trunk, and everyone crosses over it except for him because he doesn't know how. But Thumper encourages him and tells him to come on and cross because it's very easy. Bambi tries to jump, but he fails and falls. Thumper tells him he needs to jump from a bit further back, but he trips over his other leg and falls on Thumper. On the way, Bambi sees birds eating, so he gets very surprised. Thumper tells him that this is called a bird, and Bambi repeats the word after him. Everyone is very happy because Bambi is trying to speak. They all go to Bambi's mother to tell her the good news. Then Bambi sees a butterfly and calls it a bird. Thumper tells him, no, that's a butterfly. He keeps repeating after him. Then he finds a flower. He looks at it and calls it a butterfly. Thumper tells him, no, this is a flower. So he says, this is a beautiful flower, and he smells it. Bambi suddenly finds this creature in front of him and calls him a flower. The creature gets very shy and says to call him a flower and that he won't get upset. So Bambi calls him a beautiful flower, and the creature gets very happy with his words. After that, night comes, and there's thunder. They get very scared, and Thumper says they have to go home. Bambi runs to his mother. She takes him in her arms, and they go to sleep to the sound of rain on the leaves, making beautiful melodies. The next day, Bambi asks his mother what they're going to do today, and she tells him they are going to the meadow. He asks why they haven't gone there before, and she tells him it's because he was too small before, but now he's grown up. She tells him there are many deer, and the day will come when they see them. They arrive at the land, but his mother stops him and tells him he can't just run into the land like that because there might be danger around. She tells him to stay here while she goes to check things out. When she doesn't find anything, she calls for Bambi. He goes to her, and they keep running and playing together, feeling very happy. We see on the river this duck and her little children, but there's one little duckling scared to get into the river. Bambi breaks that fear and helps her get in. He keeps jumping around until he meets these rabbits while they are eating clover. Thumper tells him it's very delicious and invites him to try it, but tells him this part is much better than the clover. Thumper's mother scolds him and asks what his father said. He tells her that he said clover has many benefits. It makes big legs and long ears, but it tastes worse than greens. Adding to Bambi, then Bambi sees a frog jumping and follows it until he reaches this pond. He looks into the water, and for the first time Bambi sees his reflection. But he also sees this pretty one, another deer besides him. She tries to get close to him, but Bambi gets scared and runs back to his mother. His mother starts laughing and introduces them, telling him to go say hello to Feline, but he doesn't want to. Feline goes to greet him, but he gestures and says no. His mother pushes him and tells him to go greet her. With much effort, Bambi says hello. Feline gets very happy and jokes with him until she knocks him into the water. They keep running after each other until they see a herd of deer and two deer fighting with their antlers. Bambi tries to imitate this, but Feline runs from him and tells him that she's a girl. Bambi finds the herd coming toward him, so he hides quickly. After that, he goes after them until they all stand in front of the king. The king approaches Bambi and keeps looking at him. Bambi asks his mother why they all stopped as soon as he arrived. She tells him it's because they all respect him, as he's the oldest, the bravest, and very wise, which is why they call him the Prince of the Forest. Suddenly, he hears the sound of crows like an alarm for danger. The prince runs, followed by all the deer, but Bambi gets lost from his mother. The prince goes to him and walks with him. Suddenly, we hear the sound of a gunshot. When Bambi returns to his mother, he asks why they all ran, and she tells him it's because man was in the forest. Winter comes, and Bambi is very surprised. His mother tells him this is snow, and it comes when winter arrives. Bambi walks in it, feeling very surprised by his footprints. He keeps playing in the snow until Thumper comes and shows him how to slide on the ice. Bambi tries to do the same but falls. At that moment, they find Flower sleeping. Thumper wakes him up and asks him what brought him here. He tells him he was hibernating because all the flowers sleep in the winter and goes back to sleep. The winter weather is very tough, and all the deer eat from the tree trunks. Bambi tells his mother he's dying of hunger. She keeps digging in the snow until she brings out some grass and lets Bambi eat from it. But she senses danger around. She tells Bambi to go quickly to the forest, to run and not look back. We hear the sound of a gunshot. The mother gets even more scared and tells Bambi to run. Bambi listens and runs at maximum speed, saying that they are alive. He looks back but doesn't find his mother. He keeps calling for her in extreme sadness, sitting to the side and crying. He finds the king in front of him, telling him that his mother won't be with him starting from today, and tells him to come with him. Spring comes, and everyone is happy. The birds are singing and everyone is dancing, waking up the owl with their noise. He scolds them and tries to quiet them down. He goes to another tree trunk to sleep, but a deer comes and keeps hitting the tree. The owl scolds him, but the deer asks if he remembers him. The owl focuses and says, "Who, Bambi?" saying it's unbelievable because he looks so changed. We see Thumper has also grown up, and he greets Bambi, but Bambi doesn't recognize him until he thumps. We also see Flower. They all see two birds running after each other and ask the owl why they are doing that. He tells them that this is the mating season, a terrifying feeling where you'll feel like you're flying and walking on air, warning them that it could happen to any one of them. They all say this is impossible and walk away. On the way, Flower sees eyes among the roses. A female skunk comes out and greets him, and because of the extreme embarrassment, his face changes colors. Thumper says that love has happened to him. On the way, Thumper sees a very beautiful rabbit. He opens his mouth and keeps staring at her, and as she approaches while he thumps on the ground, he faints. Bambi sees him and says, "Wow, you too?" and walks away to the river to drink water. A deer comes to him and says she is Feline. Bambi gets shy and moves away, but when she gets close, the same thing happens to him. They keep playing together until another deer appears who is interested in Feline. He pushes Bambi, knocking him to the ground. But Bambi doesn't keep quiet. He fights back fiercely, knocks him into the water, and leaves with Feline. They spend the whole day together. Night comes, and we see them sleeping. But Bambi wakes up, walks until he stands in a high place, and looks at the waterfall. Suddenly, the king comes and tells him that man has returned to the forest in large numbers, and they must go to the center as quickly as possible. Bambi goes to Feline, who was looking for him and very worried. The crows inform everyone that man is nearby, and everyone starts moving. One of the ducks gets very scared and takes flight, but man sees her and shoots her down. Everyone runs to the forest, except for Feline, who keeps looking for Bambi, but wild dogs see her and attack her, cornering her on a high rock. Bambi hears her voice calling him, runs to her, and attacks the dogs. There are many of them, but Bambi manages to hit them all and tells her to run. The dogs keep attacking him until Bambi manages to escape them and drops a big rock on them. He keeps running, but while jumping to the other side, he gets shot. Bambi falls to the ground, unable to move from his spot. At that moment, fire catches in the entire forest. Everyone flees from. Suddenly, the king goes to Bambi and encourages him to get up from his spot before the fire catches him. He actually succeeds and goes with the king. They escape the fire, running because the flames are everywhere. They reach a waterfall, and with a burning tree trunk about to fall on them, they jump quickly into the water. We see after that, the entire forest has burned, and everyone swam in the water to a nearby island. Everyone is coming out of the water with their children. Feline is very sad for Bambi because she still thinks he's in the forest. At the same time, Bambi and the prince keep swimming toward the island and actually manage to reach it. Feline is very happy that Bambi is still alive. We see the owl sleeping as usual, and Thumper and his children run to wake him up. Flower tells him to congratulate, saying he got a little one, and named him Bambi after his friend. Everyone runs to the thicket, and at that moment, we learn that a newborn has come to Bambi. They go to get to know them, but they discover it's not just one newborn. There are two of them, and they look very much alike. Everyone is in extreme happiness. And with that, our movie ends. And our final movie is Swapped. Let's dive right into it. The movie kicks off on a tiny island where a massive amount of birds live. We see a leaf moving because a tiny creature is underneath it, collecting seeds. Suddenly, he gets spotted by a bird, and Ali starts telling us that he's going to share his story. He narrates that for as long as he can remember, he's been a curious guy who loves collecting objects to keep in his basket. One day, he gets the idea to use a crystal to look underwater so he can discover new places. But suddenly, his dad shows up and manages to pull him out just in time before an animal eats him. Then, his dad tells him he shouldn't be so trusting, because other creatures would eat him without a second thought. Ali tells his parents he was just exploring, but they respond that they aren't a curious species, and the only thing that matters is staying safe. His grandma starts telling him that many years ago they lived alongside other animals, and were always terrified of a savage wolf. But one day, everything changed when giant creatures arrived in the valley, bringing magic pods that could transform creatures. However, the wolf stole the magic to turn himself into a monster. After that, he used his transformation to attack the giants because he wanted to drive them away and be the master of the valley. So Ali needs to be careful about leaving the island. Since the wolf is still terrorizing the valley, his parents say they only care about safety and are going to have a festival to give thanks for the harvest. We see everyone having fun playing with seeds, but Ali decides to walk away to follow a little bird. Then he realizes it's a friendly bird and offers it some seeds because it was hungry. Ali starts showing it how to open plants, but his father scolds him for being with other animals, since birds can use their whistling to communicate with each other. We see that the older birds also learn how to get the seeds, which ends up causing their village to be raided by a huge flock of birds, making them lose all the seeds they gathered in the harvest. Back in the present, we see the tribe is having trouble gathering food because the birds are eating all the seeds. Ali feels guilty for causing the problem, since everything started by helping a bird. Then he gets the idea that he can use crystals to scare away the birds because he noticed they're afraid of light. But suddenly, he ends up being attacked by a wild bird and falls into a cave where the pod is located. He realizes the story was true and accidentally ends up falling on it. Night falls, and the tribe is investigating why Ali hasn't returned. Then he starts yelling to them that he fell into a hole and feels a bit weird because of the hit he took. But when he comes out, we realize he transformed into a bird, and Ali screams to his mother that he's scared. They think he's inside the bird and start throwing stones at it so it gives Ali back. Then, he accidentally falls off the mountain, and when he wakes up, he realizes he's very far from his island. Ali is scared because some birds arrive, but they tell him they rescued him from the water. Ali realizes he's in a different body, and that he understands all creatures thanks to the pod's magic. The birds think he hurt his head because he was hit many times during the rescue. Then Sally discovers it's the same bird that attacked him, and he tries to convince them he's the tiny creature. But suddenly they hear a wolf and decide to cover him in poop to hide his scent. Since fire wolves like to hunt animals, Ali was in trouble because he hadn't learned how to fly. Then, Ali hears a fish talking to it, telling him the location of another pod, so he walks off in search of a big tree. When he arrives, he realizes the fish was right. Ivy thinks he's really gone crazy, but we see that she accidentally ends up transformed after touching the pod. Then she realizes she's in a different body, and that Ali was telling the truth about being transformed. Ali blames Ivy, saying it's all her fault, and they start walking to ask the fish where to find another pod. The fish starts saying he's been alone since the disaster happened, and that the pods are in the giants' corpses. So they head toward the waterfall because there's another pod there. But suddenly, they hear wolves howling because they discover a pup is lost. Then they realize they've been surrounded and start running to escape the wolves. Ali gets the idea that they can enter a cave to hide from the wolves. But when they arrive, they realize there's a nest of snakes. Then he explains to Ivy that she can use her nose to see smells, and they start crossing the cave through the safest path. The wolves decide they'll just howl, so the snakes discover them, and they end up trapped because they reached a cliff. Ivy decides to throw Ollie to save herself from the snakes, and manages to teach him what's necessary so he learns how to fly. Then they go on their way to reach the waterfall, but they decide to take a break because it's getting dark. Ivy starts telling him that her species almost went extinct due to the lack of food, and that it was very sad because her parents died. But one day she discovered they could eat seeds, and that was the first time she saw animals of her species. The next morning, the animals realize where the waterfall is and start flying to reach the pod. But when they land, they discover there's a wolf, and the fish tells them he'll create a distraction so they can get close. Then he starts pretending he came out of the water so he can attract them with his scent. While the animals take the chance to head to the waterfall, they arrive and discover there's only one pod, and they start fighting over who should eat it. Ollie confesses the truth that he was the animal who taught her how to eat the seeds, and that because of that action, his species is starving. But suddenly, they see the wolves have arrived, and we see that they accidentally transform into fish. He realizes the pods transform them into the last animal they mentioned, but Ollie yells at her again because he's still mad at her. Then they head toward the location of the other pods, and the fish confesses that he feels very sad for always being alone. Ivy starts telling him that when she met him, she felt a kind of trust, and that she was always grateful for him saving her family. The fish shows them they've reached the place where the pods are, but he says the only problem is the current is very strong. So they start swimming to go up as a team, but they see that the rocks were actually some bears. Then they go at high speed to escape the bears, but they see that the group of wolves was at the top, and that the pup had accidentally fallen onto a branch. Ollie gets the idea that they can work as a team to save him from the fall, and then they go on their way to use the pods. They celebrate that they've returned to their bodies and ask the fish what animal he would turn into, but he confesses the truth that he was just tricking them and that he's actually the wolf from the legend. Then he starts telling them he was the smallest of his litter, and that's why they abandoned him to just die. So he made the decision that he would destroy the valley so everyone would worship him. But they transformed him into a fish so he would be in prison. The wolf uses his fangs to attack the girl and then uses his flames to burn the pods. The wolf starts saying he'd finally return to terrorize the animals and is dying because of his wounds. So Ollie decides he's going to build an invention to carry his friend because doctors could heal her wounds. And he manages to climb the mountain to reunite with the birds. Then Solly wakes up in the bird's nest, and we see he's happy because he could save his friend. But suddenly they see there's ash in the air because the wolf is destroying the valley. So the birds decide they're going to work as a team to rescue the animals and start flying to guide them toward the shore. But suddenly we see the wolves also arrive, and they start thanking them for saving the pup. Then all the animals start working together to save themselves from the fire and head toward Ollie's island. His parents are happy that Ollie is still alive, but they are afraid they might be attacked. Ollie starts explaining to them that the story was true, and he discovered they are stronger when they work as a team. So his father decides he would trust his son again, and they would help the animals so they can protect themselves. But suddenly they hear the wolf yelling at them, and he starts running to try to kill them. Ollie gets the idea that he can jump into the cave to get another pod, and decides to use the roots to communicate with the giants, which manages to make them use their magic so another pod appears. And Ollie decides to use it to transform into a giant. Then he heads out to fight the wolf and decides to throw water at him to put out his flames. Ollie starts telling him he was too naive, but the wolf ignites his flames to burn the pod. Then he runs up Ollie's body and is using his fire to burn his new body. The wolf starts mocking them for being too weak and says that soon he'll finish off the whole valley. But suddenly he realizes Ollie is holding him back with his roots, and that Ollie decides to sacrifice himself to destroy the valley's dam because that way he could finish the wolf. His parents are sad to have lost their son and give Ivy a hug to comfort her too. After a while, the valley was able to return to normal, and the animals learned to live with all species. One day they realized the giants had returned because peace finally came back to the valley. Then,
Ivy discovers her friend was still alive, and Ollie starts explaining that he managed to be saved thanks to the giant's power.
So they fly off, so he can reunite with his parents, and the giants decide to kneel in Ollie's presence. That was Ollie's story. Started with curiosity and ended with a hero's stand. If you enjoyed this one, smash that like button and subscribe, because what's coming is even bigger. Drop a comment and tell me, which movie do you want me to break down next? Peace.